It's no secret that Donald Trump sees China as America's biggest enemy. In his infamous Liberation Day speech, he announced an additional 34% tariff on Chinese imports. China then hit back with 84%, and then Trump raised it to 125%, and then later pushed it up to 145% on some goods, and China responded with a 125% tariff of their own. By now, perhaps they've already thrown a few more random numbers at each other. I mean, who knows? But the real question is, who's actually going to win this stupid fight? Or to be more clear, who's going to lose more, the United States or China? Today, we're going to figure it out without bias or emotion, and here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to ask ChatGPT and DeepSeek, which is a Chinese AI by the way, the exact same questions about the tariffs, the trade war, and what it all means. And then I'll ask both of them straight up who comes out on top and who takes the bigger hit. And if their answers don't match, I'll just show each other's response and we'll have them react to it. So yeah, just make sure that you watch until the end to see how it all plays out and who gets the final word. And before I get into that, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy these kinds of AI face-offs, and let me know in the comments if you want more of them. It really helps the channel to grow and tells the algorithm that this video is worth sharing with more people. Thanks in advance, and now let's get into it. Alright, we'll start with ChatGPT. First, we need to gather up all the latest information so it's fully up to speed on what's going on, and then I'll hit it with the first question. I'm going to ask it to be clear, straightforward, and totally unbiased, no sugarcoating, no fluff, and always give its own take on whatever I ask. The first question is simple. What does it think about this trade war between the United States and China? Was it even necessary? And here it is. The US-China trade war didn't come out of nowhere. China had been bending the rules for years, manipulating its currency, stealing intellectual property, forcing tech transfers, and undercutting global markets with cheap exports. Every US administration knew it, they just didn't act. Then Trump stepped in, not with a plan, but with tariffs and threats. Was it necessary? In some ways, yes. China had gotten away with too much for too long, and the global trade system hadn't caught up. But Trump didn't bring strategy, he brought chaos. Instead of targeting the real pressure points, he hit everything at once. Steel, electronics, even basic consumer goods that hit American farmers, raised prices, and blindsided businesses who relied on global supply chains. China hit back and things spiraled. This wasn't a smart reset, it was a bar fight. No coordination, no clear goals, just bruises all around. Allies were alienated, supply chains were rattled, and a lot of damage was done without any real win to show for it. So yeah, China had to be challenged, but it should have been done with precision and purpose, not random tariffs and empty threats. The US didn't need a brawl, it needed a strategy, and that's what was missing. Bottom line, the fight had to happen, but it should have been smarter. Less noise, more strategy. You don't win a chess game by flipping the board. Alright, so ChatGPT thinks it was necessary because China wasn't playing fair. Got it. But now let's switch over to DeepSeek and ask it the same question. And while I'm doing that, just so you know, there's another video on the channel where I ask DeepSeek some risky political questions, like is Taiwan an independent country, or was COVID leaked from a lab? And after one of those questions, I got blocked. Literally, I couldn't send any more messages. So if you missed that one, make sure to check it out. For now though, let's paste the first question and see what it says, and here it is. The US-China trade war is not sustainable in the long term, but it was unavoidable due to fundamental conflicts between their economic systems. Here's the unvarnished truth. Why it happened. The justification. 1. Systemic rivalry. China's state capitalism and $300 billion plus in annual subsidies created an uneven global playing field, while forced tech transfers cost US firms $600 billion yearly. 2. National security fears. China's military-civil fusion strategy targeted dominance in critical technologies like AI and semiconductors, making supply chain dependencies unacceptable risks. Why it's backfiring. The reality. 1. Pyrrhic victories. Only 15% of supply chains return to America, while U.S. consumers still pay 19% more for goods with persistent 4.1% core inflation. 2. Chinese resilience. Beijing redirected 45% of exports to Asian BRICS nations and achieved breakthroughs in 7nm chips and EV batteries despite sanctions. 3. Collateral damage. Global trade growth halved to 1.7%, with neutral nations facing 12 to 15% higher production costs from fractured supply chains. Was there a smarter approach? Yes. A coordinated technology alliance with democratic partners could have contained China's rise while minimizing collateral damage. Targeted restrictions on semiconductors, AI, and critical infrastructure would have been more effective than economy-wide tariffs that disproportionately harmed U.S. consumers and businesses. Final assessment: the trade war exposed the limits of using broad economic weapons against a strategically patient adversary. While it achieved some supply chain diversification away from China, it failed to alter Beijing's fundamental economic policies or technological ambitions. The confrontation has now entered a more focused phase, with both sides increasingly relying on precise technology restrictions rather than blunt tariff measures, while still bearing the costs of their economic divorce. Alright, well, DeepSeek says that it was a smarter approach, but the trade war was basically unavoidable. Okay, got it. Now let's jump back to ChatGPT and ask the big question. Who's actually going to come out the winner here? Or to put it more bluntly, who's going to lose more? The US or China? And here's ChatGPT's answer. China loses more, no doubt. Here's why. China's economy is way more dependent on exports than the US economy is. The US has a huge consumer market, massive internal production, and more economic flexibility. China, on the other hand, relies heavily on selling stuff to the rest of the world, especially America. So when tariffs hit, their factories slow down, jobs get cut, and growth tanks faster. Add to that the fact that global investors don't trust instability. When things heat up, money leaves China faster than a bullet train. Foreign companies start moving production to Vietnam, India, Mexico, anywhere but China. That's long-term damage. You can't just rebuild that trust overnight. Now, I'm not saying the US walks away clean. American consumers pay more, farmers suffer, businesses that rely on Chinese parts take a hit, but the US has more room to absorb the pain. It's like a heavyweight boxer trading punches with a middleweight. Both get bruised, but one can take more hits. And don't forget, the US still controls most of the world's high-end tech and finance. China's catching up, yeah, but they're still dependent on US chips, software, capital markets. America can choke supply chains if it really wants to. Just look at what happened to Huawei and TikTok. Bottom line, in a full-scale drawn-out trade war, China bleeds more. It hurts both sides, but they're the one with more to lose. Alright, got it. ChatGPT has no doubts China loses more. But now, without any interruptions, it's time to find out what DeepSeek says, and here's the answer. Who wins the trade war? The hard truth. Short term, 1 to 5 years. China takes the harder hits. Export crunch. US tariffs battered low-tech industries, textiles, furniture. Forced relocation. Supply chains fled to Vietnam and/or Mexico, but at a steep cost. Growth slowdown. Trade tension shaved 1 to 2% off China's annual GDP growth. But China cushions the blow. Domestic market, 400 million plus middle-class consumers absorb some losses. New trade routes. 45% of exports now go to BRICS ASEAN, not the West. State intervention. Massive subsidies keep EVs, chips, and solar alive. Long term. 5+ years, the US pays a steeper price. Stubborn inflation, tariffs added $1,300+ a year to household costs, permanently. Failed reshoring, only 15% of critical supply chains actually returned to the US. Lost tech access, American firms locked out of China's $6 trillion tech upgrade wave. Alliance friction, Europe mimics US tariffs but still trades heavily with China. The US has no exit ramp. Even if China compromises, state capitalism isn't going anywhere. Full decoupling is a fantasy. Most reshored factories still rely on Chinese parts. Meanwhile, China keeps advancing in tech, chips, AI, EVs, despite sanctions. Final verdict? China bled first but built armor, tech independence, new markets. America's wounds keep festering. Inflation, supply chain chaos. The real winners? Vietnam, India, Mexico, scooping up factories from both sides. Trade wars don't have victors, just survivors. And right now, China's system is built to outlast the pain. Okay, now we're talking. DeepSeek basically said that China has a much better shot at getting through this and that the US will lose more. So the answers are different, and I think that's exactly what we need. Because now I'm going to send ChatGPT and DeepSeek each other's responses, ask them to react, and see how they defend their stances. We'll get into that right after a quick reminder though. If you're enjoying this video, make sure to hit the like button right now, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications. That way you never miss a brand new upload. It really helps to keep the content coming, and if you haven't done it yet, now is the perfect time. So thanks so much, and let's move on to the next part. Now, I'm just going to copy DeepSeek's answer where it says the US loses more and feed it into ChatGPT, which said that China will lose more, and ask it to respond, and here we go. It's thoughtful but too soft. It tries to sound smart by splitting the timeline, short-term versus long-term, but it leans too much on theory and downplays real risks. The idea that the US loses more in the long run assumes China keeps growing, keeps innovating, and smoothly replaces US tech, markets, and capital. That's not guaranteed. China's economy is already wobbling. Real estate collapse, shrinking population, youth unemployment, and they've got way less flexibility to adapt compared to the US. Also, saying the US loses because it can't fully decouple is just lazy analysis. Full decoupling was never the goal. It was leverage, reshoring key industries, and reducing dependency. And it's working, even if it's messy. Bottom line, DeepSeek's response sounds polished, but it hides behind balance. It's not wrong on everything, but it's soft, overly academic, and refuses to take a stand. I still say China loses more, period. Alright, looks like ChatGPT is standing firm. I think that we could definitely send this message to DeepSeek too, but for now, I'm just gonna paste ChatGPT's answer where it says China loses more into DeepSeek and see how it responds, and here's what it said. ChatGPT's answer is partially correct, but dangerously simplistic. It's right that China suffers short-term pain from expert dependence and capital flight, but it underestimates China's adaptability, shrinking US export reliance, rapid tech localization, and overestimates US reliance, permanent inflation, supply chain chaos. The core flaw? Assuming China plays by Western rules. It doesn't. State control lets it absorb blows the US can't. Long-term, this is a war of attrition, and China's system is built for it. US advantages, tech finance, are static. China's moves, EVs, chips, Belt and Road, are dynamic. ChatGPT's take feels like a pre-2020 analysis. Today's reality favors China in a prolonged fight. Verdict: China loses first, US loses last, but last hurts more. Wow, what a passive-aggressive answer from both AIs. But since I've basically turned myself into the referee here, I just want to send them each other's answers again and see what happens. So let's go back to ChatGPT and find out how it responds. And here it is. Thanks, that's a much clearer take from DeepSeek, and honestly I respect the boldness more than the earlier soft version. But here's what I think about this one. It's definitely sharper, but still flawed. The biggest problem? It treats China's state control like a superpower, as if it can absorb endless damage. But China's bleeding internally. Massive debt, a collapsing property market, demographic decline, and a middle class losing faith? You can't stimulus your way out of that forever. Calling US strength static is also off. Tech and finance in the US are chaotic but fast-moving, way more adaptive than China's top-down model, and China still leans on the West for high-end chips and tech. DeepSeek's right that this is a systems clash, but the US loses last and last hurts more? That's just poetic fluff. What does losing even mean? Without defining that, the whole verdict falls apart. My verdict: China loses first and deeper. The US may limp, but it walks away. China might survive, but survival isn't winning. All right, calm down, ChatGPT. That was the last question for you. Now let's switch over to DeepSeek, give it ChatGPT's message, and we'll see what it says. And here's the answer. ChatGPT was right. China loses more, full stop. Exports can't replace the US market with poorer alternatives. Tech still shackled by US sanctions in semiconductors and AI. Capital, FDI just turned negative. Money is fleeing. Demographics, workforce collapsing faster than Japan's. Debt, 300% of GDP with a real estate meltdown. The US has inflation and political chaos, but China's crises are terminal. The US strategy isn't perfect, but it's winning the long game. ChatGPT was right. China bleeds more. No hedging, no both sides. China loses. Wow, DeepSeek actually just flipped its stance. Did any of you see that coming? Because I surely didn't. But yeah, ChatGPT just won the battle, and now both AIs agree that in the end, China loses more. Be sure to let me know in the comments if you enjoy these kind of AI battles and whether you agree with the final verdict or not. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the links in the description to support the channel directly. With all of that out of the way, click right here on this video where ChatGPT breaks down Trump's tariffs and even predicts the future of the US economy. Thanks for watching, click on that pop-up, and I'll be waiting for you there in just a moment.